This video is brought to you in collaboration with wowhead.com. Hello everyone! We've covered potential future storylines, like going to the Undermine, or the Haronir and the Roots. But of course, there's also visiting the Arathi Empire, the place where allies from hollowfall come from. An offshoot kingdom of the Arathi Empire that we know, similar as to how we have places like Lordaeron, Dalaran, or Kul Tiras. They flowed out of that original kingdom, but for some reason, this one we haven't been in contact with for a very long time. And why? That's to be explained. And it got me thinking as to what kind of story we might get to see. We've had a Pandaria hidden by mists, or a Suramar covered by a magical bubble. The Dragon Isles that had a cloaking device. Could the Arathi have something similar? Perhaps the mentioned Titan Isle could play a part near their lands and their imperial waters. And Window wonders, if and when we get into contact with the rest of the Empire, if they're gonna be our allies or our foe. A fair question to ask, considering the bits and pieces that we learned about their home.
That's the kind of support we'll need to bolster our
I didn't hear a call to battle. I had a hymn of healing. I don't want to go to war again. I want to go home.
We're not going to war. It's coming to us. When the others see...
You need to trust the Earthen and the Goblins. They are not our enemy.
That's the difference between you and me. You build, I protect. And mark my words, we will need that protection.
At the center of the Empire, there stands the Sacred Flame. Another part of their story that we don't really know a whole lot about, even though it's such a huge part of their culture. It's a merger of light and fire, which keeps the darkness of hollowfall away. In their priory, they've discovered secrets that could bring them victory over their enemies. Undeads brought back in the light to fight once more. And quite a nice boon for any empire to have. It allows them to predict the future. Or more specifically, one man amongst the empire has the ability to do so. That would be their emperor. At least according to the Shadow Curfew Journal, which explains that the emperor has the ability due to magical blood. Thinking about what my neighbor Ruban was saying about how in the absence of vision of the self, promoted by the state and enforced through the threat of violence, those who deviate from the norms, set down by dead men from another time, are free to imagine ways of living that does not repeat the mistakes of our ancestors. Is a feudal autocracy the best way to live one's life? Does the Sacred Flame speak to all of us, and not just to one man with magic blood? The smart people able to decipher the big tome for the Church of the Sacred Flame. They figured out that it's currently Thoradin the Ninth sitting on the throne. But not all emperors are named after the founder of the kingdom, named after Thoradin of Arathor. We also have mention of an emperor Lanes IV, so it's not necessarily true that their current emperor is a descendant of Thoradin. That current emperor, in the year 342nd of glorious dominion, did ordain the assembly of the Hollowfall expedition to traverse the storming sea, eventually end up down below Beladar, just as the emperor had foreseen. Not the first and not the last prophecy to come forth. Their whole empire has flourished on this ability, the divine visions which they're commanded to either fulfill and make true, or forestall and manipulate prophecy. And that part piques my interest, because we also have protectors of the timeline, and an Iridikron questioning
why the Titans preserve this timeline.
The Titans safeguard our world from monsters like you!
Your faith means nothing to them.
Now we have an emperor who can foresee potential futures and is messing around with its outcomes to benefit the empire. What ripple effects have those choices caused? And say that we do need to take on the emperor. How do you battle someone with the ability to see the future? Would it be the first time though? Remember taking on Prophet Zul or Queen Alicent? Alternate Alicent, after learning information from our timeline, is still doing her thing as well. Could make for an interesting story, I suppose. Prophecies versus timelines. Maybe even bring in Prophet Velen and his visions, one of them actually lining up with that of the Emperor's, the vision of Renny Lush. And as soon as Anduin came into view, the world changed. Instead of the prince, an armored warrior stood before him, his plate helm and breastplate shining with the essence of the light itself. The warrior wielded a sword forged from the same material as the armor, held it aloft as he perched on an outcropping, Whether it was on another world or Azeroth, Velen couldn't quite tell, and suddenly the dark sky above erupted with the combined chivalry of Azeroth's races. The Blood Elves, Orcs, Trolls, Tauren, and even the accursed undead and scheming goblins rode flying mounts of every sort and description. They were armored and armed in magical weaponry, glowing with so much power it hurt Velen's eyes to look at them. Besides the legions of the Horde, the ancient Night Elves charged with humans, dwarves and gnomes, whose ancestors formed the original alliance, and the shape-changing Worgens were united with them. Velen's own Draenei bolstered the army, their ranks adorned in otherworldly metals and bearing crystalline maces and swords. The Horde and Alliance were not alone. Dragons swooped and soared in formation that made the sky resemble a giant, multicolored reptilian wing. They blanketed the horizon with their physical size and numbers. And when they roared a challenge, it shook not just the earth Velen stood on, but the universe as well. And yet, for all of this, the greatest shock to Velen's senses came as he saw those that flew just beyond the army of dragons. The Naru had taken the field, so many that Velen didn't understand how creation could contain them. The power of these beings of light filled Velen's heart with hope, swept away the lonely centuries, and left him in wonder that he could ever despair that the dark, no matter how terrible, could ever truly reign. And then a shadow fell. It was vast and empty and swallowed all light that entered it. Velen knew it would be all-consuming until, at last, it would turn and devour itself, endlessly gnawing on nothing in the great dark beyond, removing all meaning from the universe, from the most heartbreaking sonata to the most arresting sunset. It was too terrible to see, to comprehend, and yet the army headed straight for it, and the light began to fade. The Arathi, guardians of the sacred flame, formed the Aegis Shield, a constellation of courage against the encroaching darkness. Their resolve, a beacon in the night, as stars began to fade into shadow. The Harbinger's forces, nightmares of legs and claws, spun from the loom of oblivion, skittered across the battlefield. Their movements, a grotesque dance, echoed the discordant rhythm of a world teetering on the brink. The wall, built with the living rock of titans, bore the weight of the conflict, each stone a silent witness to the struggle, whispering tales of valor to the wind, stirring the spirits of warriors long gone. The remains of gods, scattered across the battlefield, pulsed with an unseen light. Their echoes, a clarion call, stirred the Arathi, compelling them to fight, to kill for the world's dawn. Taking on Xal'atath at the end of the max level campaign, it somewhat lines up with this prophecy. Our forces fighting against the darkness, Xal'atath encouraging the battle, the blood of the old gods all around us, until Illyria spots it and knows where to confront the Harbinger, in the priory of the Sacred Flame. But then number 19 says, amidst the chaos, the Forgotten One cried, when the last star fades, the Emperor's crown will weigh heavy with the sins of 1,000 years. The stalwart soldiers threw down their spears and wept tears of blood and burning anger. Perhaps the real Renilash is still waiting ahead of us, a vision once seen by Velen as well. The Naru, dragons, alliance and horde, all to be had against the massive darkness of the universe. But the sins of 1,000 years, the Emperor crown manipulating the future, does not come without consequences, it seems. Did the Emperor truly use the visions to push the Empire to glory? Or was it more for their own family line? That could be one of the prominent storylines for returning to the Arathi Empire, dealing with the consequences of manipulating the future. Those that would stand with the Emperor no matter what, and those that might have to look beyond his manipulated visions of the Sacred Flame. You can bet that someone like Faerin Lothar would be at the center of this, going up against the Emperor that might only hold ties to Thoradin of Arathor in name, whereas Faerin has connections in blood. And yet that's another thing that's so interesting, because on our end of the world, the Lothar bloodline, it was a legend, right? Anduin Lothar leading the charge for the Alliance of Lordaeron, bringing in the elves to quell for lust due to his bloodline, losing his life at Blackrock Mountain, and the sons of Lothar carrying on his legacy. Anduin Rin was named after him, so obviously you would expect great things when Faerin revealed to be a Lothar as well, but the opposite is true. Her family was so terrible that she decided, as a very young child, to join this expedition into who knows where. And even after saving their sacred flame, they still dumped her into the orphanage as fast as they could. An orphanage that at the time wasn't even built yet. The name Lothar has a reputation amongst the Arathi, as we learn from the big book of Arathi idioms. Lothar's Landing. Duke Lothar annexed the island of New Light, sparking an economic boom in the empire. Lothar's Landing became an idiom for a hopeful but uncertain trade or diplomatic initiatives by the empire, often said with dripping sarcasm when the venture fails to find success.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
Obviously, not everyone in the same bloodline is going to rise up to great heights, and that might be all there is to it. But why would those with a direct bloodline to the former king, why would they not be on the throne? They apparently still revere the first king to such a degree that their current emperor boasts their name. Could it be that they've been using their prophetic visions in order to screw over the Lothar bloodline? What if there's no such thing as prophetic visions from the sacred flame to begin with? And instead, there's been a different source guiding the emperor's visions.
Mother, who are you talking to?
Ghosts, dearest. As always, they are my ready counsel.
It's oddly convenient that not only they build a priory at just the right spots, it even boasts a similar design to the Dark Heart. If the Emperor has the ability to complete or forestall visions, then how come everything lined up just perfectly for Xal'atath?
You promised nothing. Yet I gave you everything.
I do wonder how much fun it would be if we find yet another ruler in the clutches of the Harbinger, after we dealt with Queen Anthrek, and obviously all of this is speculation. For all we know, the Emperor is kind and mighty and a great ally in the war against the darkness, but so far, it definitely seems like some of the Arathi, they could push into war with us, for the glory of the Emperor or the Empire. What would our current allies choose if the Emperor would put them to the choice? The sins of 1,000 years, stalwart soldiers throwing down their spears and weeping tears of blood and burning anger. The mysteriously hidden Arathi Empire could be a great ally for the war against the darkness that is to come. Perhaps it's time for the Thoradin bloodline to claim the throne and guide them to their true destiny. But all that and more is of course a story waiting to be revealed, and I'm curious as to how it might go down. And as a final note to add to all of this, with an eye on the potential return of a faction war or the Arathi Empire not being kind and friendly to all of us, we also have the recently released Heartlands story, which they gave us with the Warcraft Directs. This one is written by Adam Christopher, narrated by Chris Metzen, which we can check out on YouTube for absolutely free. In essence, the story talks about how old hatreds are difficult to bury, and Dun of Trollbane's niece, Marren, she does not believe that they should hold up the armistice, supply their forces to yet another war that is not their own, that share the Arathi lands with the Magyar orcs. It's simply too much to ask. An inexperienced ruler, an idealist, and a believer in a false, glorious past, worshipping a misguided, even dangerous nostalgia for a golden age that she had never experienced herself, believing that they should claim the glory of the past, the glory of the Arathi, or at least so Jaina thought. In turn, Overlord Khaz'goroth does not take kindly to these hostilities, but Thrall manages to convince her to find out where Stromgarde is hurting, to look beyond just the leaders, beyond Marren's choices, and find if there's no way to compromise, to go for some sort of peace, which Khaz'goroth manages to do. Realizing that they have more in common than not, that most of them just want to live out their lives in peace, Marren is the opposite, full on giving herself to the glory that she believes they're owed. There are those wiser amongst the ranks that step away from the leader, so in the end, she's all alone on this path of vengeance, of glory and conquest. Well, not entirely alone. There's also a spy master, skilled enough to hit a Thrall and a Jaina, which is left as a loose end at the end of the tale. If and when we do visit the Arathi Empire, I'd imagine that this will come back into play. Hatreds of old, glory believed to be owed, and an emperor that can see a vision of the future. But again, that will be for later. So for now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. By all means, let me know what story you would like to see for the Arathi in the comments down below. And say that you want to read up on all the things that we talked about today. Then make sure to check out the related WoW article in the description down below. And with that, until next time, See ya!